Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be doing this look right here, which I'm not 1000% in love with. This is a full face of first impressions. I think there were 4 products all day that were not new to me. And this is the end result, which all in all, for a bunch of products I've never used before, I'm not unhappy with how it turned out, but it's not like such a stellar makeup day that I want to sit down, film 10 more videos and be like, look at my face, take some selfies and get on IG stories. Just not feeling it that much. But some of these products are slam dunk holy grail wins that you will be seeing a lot of. And I cannot wait to share with you guys what I love and what I definitely don't. So if that's something you're into, make sure to keep on watching. And please don't forget to subscribe because I upload 3 to 4 times a week. And that's going to be the best way to stay up to date on all the fun stuff I'm posting. So if you want to see how we got here, all the things along the way that didn't work out that we had to fix, and some of the products that worked so well that I promise you'll be seeing them in upcoming videos, stay tuned. Alright, so first things first, I'm going to prime. So today I'm going to be using the e.l.f. Poreless Putty Primer. This is obviously a dupe for the Tatcha Silk Canvas, and I got a sample of this when they first launched it, and I remember it breaking me out, but I only used it once, so it could have been another product, and it could have totally not been this, so I am going to try that. So I'm going to take a small amount. See, that was fresh. I just took the first, and we're going to blur our pores. Now, because I have a new primer, a new sponge, and a new powder, I am going to be using a foundation and concealer combo that I am familiar with. I definitely feel a little blurred. Compared to the Tatcha, this is a little bit smoother and almost blends in easier. Whereas the Tatcha, I feel, is a little bit thicker, but I definitely can already see my pores blurred, to the point where just popping this on would definitely be desirable. I'm going to go over the sponge first, which this is from Hank & Henry Beauty. It's the Midori sponge. It was a BoxyCharm exclusive. It came in a 2-pack with a baby one. I'm just using the big one today. And this is like a massive sponge. And I'm also going to be using the Juno & Co. Juno Blur Makeup Setting Powder. Both of these are going to be the new to me first impressions. But I will be testing it with the foundation and concealer I already know. So we're going to use the Maybelline Superstay and the First Aid Beauty Bendy Avocado. That's going to be our cocktail today with the new guys. So let's try it out. I'm going to take... Because I don't know how much this sponge, I'm going to use my plexiglass palette and just take like 2 pumps of foundation on there. And I'm going to just, do I want to dot it first? Yes, I do. I want to dot it first. So I'm going to grab a brush and just dot this around my face first. I don't often love, like, I feel like this is getting redundant, but you guys understand. I like to apply with a brush and then finesse with the sponge. Today I'm going to actually give the sponge the opportunity to do the blending. So I'm just going to dot this on and then blend it out. So this foundation has pretty good coverage on its own. And with sponges, it can sometimes absorb a lot of product. I feel like this is definitely absorbing a little bit, but I'm still getting really good coverage with it. And I love how big the sponge is. Like, I feel like a little bit of blending, and it's doing the work for me. I'm going to switch to the corner, taking a tiny bit more. Because as much as I love a really big, flat area for blending, you guys see, like, in between, crook of the nose, side of the nose, it's just harder to get in that area. So I'm going to use the point of the sponge. So far, so good. I am liking the sponge. I'm going to take a little bit of concealer. And I'm not using a whole lot. This concealer, it's a little light for me right now. However, this is such a forgiving concealer that I find it blends in so nicely that even if the shade's a little bit too light or a little too dark, it does really seamlessly blend on top of things, where I'm not super concerned with it being way too light, because it actually just brightens really nicely. And then for the powder, I'm also going to be using the Juno & Co. powder brush. So I'm just going to take the... I love when they have that little like netting applicator in there. And I'm just going to basically take this powder everywhere. Okay, so powder, beautiful. Packaging, not so beautiful. I am wearing the powder. Unfortunately, with these like sifty applicators, typically like you tap in, you get a little bit of powder. But with this one, like the second I tap in, I don't know if you guys can see, it like erupts out. So I definitely think this packaging, like, it's a weird dynamic because, for example, the last powder I used that had this kind of an applicator was the Huda powder, and I had to really like tap my brush in to get anything. With this one, I think it's the opposite. I think I'm getting a little too much powder. So it looks good and it's performing, but I think like once this is like half empty, I will like it more because I won't be getting so much powder on my brush. All right, I don't have a new eye primer, so I'm gonna use my standard primer that I always use, but I will be setting it down with this powder. So I'm gonna hop off, do that really quickly, and I'll be right back. Oh, I did prime my eyes, and looking in really closely, I don't know if you guys can see, but the powder has absolutely settled in to my forehead lines, so I'm not sure. It's definitely not the foundation because I have never had that issue with this foundation before, and I have used it on more than one occasion, but I'm definitely getting a lot of forehead line action. And normally to fix that, I would just dampen my sponge and press it out, and it's helping a little, but I'm still having a lot of that heavy creasing in this area. So I will say that the powder so far is now at strike 2, but I'll have to see if it's something that I can come back from. All right, I'm gonna jump into brows. This is from Real Her. This is the Definer Brow Pencil. It has a spoolie on one end and a brow pencil on the other. So I'm just going to quickly throw on a quick brow. You guys know I don't do a whole lot to my brows. I will like brush them up. I will lightly fill them in to the point where most of the time I will actually just use a brow gel. But I don't dislike the way a pencil works. I just find it takes for me so much more time than just taking a quick brow gel through. I mean, it definitely did the trick. I think it's a little dark for me, but it's going on nice and smooth. It's creamy, so I don't have to push too hard to try and get pigment up. And then what I really like most, and the thing I basically look for most in a brow gel, in a brow pencil, is when I'm using it, when I start grabbing the spoolie and blending it out to soften it, because I don't like a super harsh structured brow, does it blend out enough to look natural? And I know this is still going to look pretty intense because I have no eyeshadow on yet, but once the shadow is on, this will look so much more, you know, natural and soft, especially compared to the smoky eye that I'm going to throw on. All right, so the brow pencil worked. Time to jump into eyeshadows, which I was the most excited for. So for brushes, I'm going to be using some Alter Ego brushes as well as some Juno & Co. brushes. And we're going to be using that with the Balm eyeshadows. I have the Meet Matte Trimini Matte Eyeshadow Palette, which is actually really pretty. 9 pans only, but it's like a really pretty neutral. I get some purples and cranberries and berries and a bunch of soft neutral shades. And I also have one shimmer shade that came in an Ipsy, which is right here. So we're going to try and figure out some form of eye look with these. I think I'm going to go super smoky, and I think I'm going to go super fall. So I'm going to start with the Fluffy Alter Ego number 2 brush. And I'm going to take Matte Lopez, this shade right here. Not a lot of kick up in the pan, but I can see a decent amount of product on the brush. And I'm going to just take that right in the crease. I have heard good things about Balm eyeshadow palettes for a while, but I've just never actually tried one. Alright, so all of that to say the transition shade is down. I'm going to go into a Alter Ego number 5, which is a denser packed brush. This is something most people would use for either concealer or for the lid. I'm actually going to use that for a deeper tone. And I'm going to go into Matte Moskowitz down here, the purple shade. And I'm going to tap into that a few times until I get enough on the end of the brush. And I'm going to stamp on the outer portion of the eye like so. And then I'm going to trace the crease. This is the only area I like to go super precise because I'll then blend it out to soften it. But I really want to make sure, at least to start, that that pigment is where I want it. So when I go into the fluffy blending brush, just to diffuse the edges and soften it, it smokes it out a little bit, but I still maintain that definition that I was going for. And once again, as expected, that brush is still a little too flimsy, so I'm going to use something a little bit denser just to blend that shade in. Alright, I'm going to do this exact thing on this eye. Alright, dipping back into the Matte Lopez shade that we used first, I'm just going to blend out the crease a little more just to soften that purple, because this is going to be a pretty smoky eye. But I want to make sure that the tones are nice and softly blended so that it looks smoky and intense but doesn't look muddy. On the side of that first brush, I'm going to take a little bit more of the purple shade Matte Moskowitz, and I'm just going to lightly feather that shade just to intensify it on the outermost corner of the eye. I'm going in with a light hand and I'm going in very softly, because I don't want to do this too quickly because it will get messy. I really want to take my time just to make sure that I get the intensity I want without it getting sloppy. Alright, next, to soften the blend a little more, I'm going to go into Matte Lin, which is the Bone White shade. And I'm actually going to take that right at the brow bone. And I'm going to slowly blend it down, just so that we, again, blur those edges where that purple meets the brown, just so that it looks a little bit cleaner. Alright, I'm going to take this small little baby brush for the lid, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go into the pink shade, and I'm going to load up on this. I'm going to start off with a matte eye, and then I'll be adding a shimmer on top, because I do want to start with that bright pink base from that matte tone and do almost like a fake cut crease with it. And then with that blending brush, first I'm going to make sure the crease is nice and crisp. Then I'm going to feather the edges where the pink met the purple, like so. And then taking a tiny bit more of that purple, just going to blend the edge a little bit more. And if you want an all matte, smoky eye, pinky purple, you can just re-intensify the lid. I'm not doing that today because I am going to be adding that shimmer tone first. So I'm going to grab a different brush because I need like 90 brushes. I'm going to grab, actually, I'm going to go into my color switch and I'm just going to clean up the Alter Ego number 5 brush that I used with the purple. And I'm going to take that with the Day to Night Autobomb shade Wall Street. That's going to be our shimmer today. And I'm going to take that over the pink. Alright, so right away I can tell you I don't love this shade dry. Let me grab a setting spray and let's see how it applies wet. So much better. Yeah, that is much better. And then with the same brush that had the purple, just patting where those two shades meet. And then a quick blend of the crease, just to tie it all together. So I did have an eye glitter. This is from Too Faced. It is Citrus Mistress, but I don't think I'm going to like the way that's going to look with all the cool tones. So instead of using this, I'm going to set this aside and use it in a future video instead. I think I'm going to call that for what that is. I don't have a mascara, but I do have lashes. So I'm going to pop on the Alter Ego False Eyelashes in the style Plush with the Esquito Companion Eyelash Glue off camera, and I'll be right back to tie up the eyes after these are on. Alright, so lashes are on, and I will say I did have a little bit of a struggle getting them on. The band is a little bit stiff, and the style just not my favorite, but the lash glue actually went on really nicely, and I was able to get super, super close to my lash band, to my lashes, so that I didn't really even have to go in with, well, I didn't at all have to go in with liner. So I think the lashes are a meh for me, but I really did like the lash glue. Alright, now that we've got that going on, I'm going to just tie up the lower lash. I do not have a liner today to use new, so I'm going to grab my Marc Jacobs Highliner, which is a black gel liner, and I'm going to throw this in the waterline. I love how easy and creamy this liner is, and I never use it, and I don't know why. So now that that's there, I'm going to smudge and smoke it out. So I'm going to grab a smudger brush, and I'm going to pick up the same purple we basically used everywhere. And on the tip of the brush, which I'm basically just going back and forth on the tip just to load that brush up. And I'm just going to, very close to the liner, just lightly smoke and smudge the black out with that purple eyeshadow. I know there are going to be people who are not going to like this. This is the Juno & Co. number 20 brush because it is very stiff, but I love a brush like that for doing exactly this, for just getting super close to the lower lash line and just applying the perfect amount of pressure. And then going into a slightly larger pencil brush with a tiny bit of the same shade. I'm just going to buff and blend it a little bit lower. Not a lot. We're not going for like super smoky, but we do want a little bit of that blown out smokiness. And then on a really large brush, this is the number 19. I'm gonna go into Matte Lopez again, the transition shade, and I'm just going to blend around and actually connect to the outer portion of the eye just to make sure that everything is softened and blended. I love a good purple smoky eye. Now I'm going to jump into, because the eyes are basically done, I'm going to take a small definer brush, and this is actually what I'm going to use to contour as well. But this is the Charlotte Tilbury Film Star Bronze and Glow Face Sculpt and Highlight Palette. Sculpt and Highlight. So I'm going to take the highlight shade on my inner corner, and I'm actually going to pull that onto the lid as well. So I'm going to take a little bit feathered on the lid just to add a little extra glow. And then I am going to pull it onto the inner corner. Alright, grabbing my contour brush, I'm going to use the Sculpt side, the contour powder. That's a really pretty contour shade. That would have been like a lot more vibrant and I wouldn't have had to load it up as much a few months ago. But again, I'm a little tanner than I was in New York. I'm going to use the same shade to contour my nose. And then for bronzer, I'm going to use the Aesthetica Sunset Bronzer, which is, actually it's also pretty cool toned. But ooh, a lot of powder comes up when you dip into that. It's definitely not as warm, so I'm probably, especially with how cool the eyes are, gonna have to go in with quite a bit of blush, just because this is gonna end up looking a little gray if I don't add back in a decent amount of warmth to the skin. This is basically crumbling in the pan. I don't see if you can see the perimeters from wherever I tap in the brush. So because that is so intense, I'm gonna go into the Juno powder with a under eye brush, and I'm just gonna kind of clean up the under eye. I love a blur powder like this just to really smooth everything over and make everything look like one. Blush, this is also not a first impressions. I've been using it like This is like the third or fourth video, but I've been really liking the OPV Beauty Blush Palette. So today, because of how smoky and purpley the eyes are, I'm going to mix these two shades for the blush. We're going to go back into the highlight side of this palette for the cheekbone. That is such a pretty ethereal glow. As always, once I finish with complexion, I do like to go back into my sponge just to kind of pat everything out. This just kind of helps everything to look lived in a little bit. I've said this before. The best your makeup is ever going to look is that like 2 to 5 hours in. Those few hours where it's not super fresh and it's been on your face a little bit, and going in with a wet sponge just to kind of pat things out is just a really way to get to that look faster. And for lips, I have two options, and I don't know which one I want to do. Actually, no, I do. I think the blue lipstick is going to be a little bit much for this eye look. So I'm going to go in with this. This is from Delium Tools. It is their matte lipstick in the shade Kylie, which is a really pretty nude lip, which I actually think is going to look really nice with this eye color. Definitely a nice pretty nude. Okay, so I put it on and it already started to feather, which first off, it's a matte in a tube. It should not feather. So I'm going to just grab a liner and fix this up because right now it is looking like a mess. I should have just put on the damn blue lipstick. All right, I'm gonna go clean the lip up off camera and I'll be right back to talk through all the products and see how we felt. All right, so we are fixed, and honestly, this is, I think, about as good as I'm gonna be able to get it. So going through, I'm gonna pull open the basket of the products that were new today. Let's see how we feel. So the sponge I definitely liked. I think it is a good shape for really like getting into the under eye area. I like that there's this nice big surface area for really blending out foundation. But I think where this is going to really shine is in touch-ups, because having a nice big flat sponge like this throughout the day where, you know, I just need to blot a little bit, pat things up, I think this is going to really shine. The lip is going to be a pass for me because honestly, the fact that I had to really struggle to get my lips to look even, which is not something I typically struggle with, means that I'm going to say it's the lip's fault and not my fault. I wish that I had this palette in New York, because I think it would have looked so much nicer on my skin when it was a little bit more fair. I know they do have a darker color, so I'm going to have to pick that one up. But that being said, it's still highlighted beautifully, and I think the contour shade was very nice. I just wish it was a little bit darker, like somewhere in between this and what the darker one is. Obviously, that wasn't a first impression. I'm loving that palette. The Aesthetica bronzer, I am super disappointed with because it looks like on the outside, let's see if you guys can see that, on the outside of the pan, it's starting to crack, and all I did was tap my brush and do a little bit, and I got a lot of kick up, a lot of breakage. The color was nice, and I think it looked nice, especially if you are fairer in complexion or somebody who wants more of like that contoury bronze. You don't want something super, super warm. It's a nice neutral bronzer. I don't think the formula is for me. The eyeshadows perform beautifully. I don't love the tone of the metallic shade or the shimmer shade. I think just with this eye look, I would have wanted something a little bit cooler, but the matte formula was everything. I know that I really only used like 3 shadows, but if you can nail a matte formula, I am happy. And this is like, for me, the perfect fall purple smoky eye. Definitely going to see more of that palette. The lashes I'm not loving. I feel like they keep, like, just the shape isn't entirely there. And this lash glue is holding on beautifully. I now have learned that I need to add a little extra to the inner corners because it's lifting up a little bit. And with some lash glues, you just have to make sure you add a little extra. With some, you're fine. This one's going to need a little extra, but on the areas where it is, like, glued down and on, that's not going anywhere. Like, I could wiggle my eye, and that lash is not going to disappear. The primer. I am noticing the foundation breaking up a little bit on my nose, so I think the primer, I'm going to have to say, is not as good as the Tatcha one, but it's like 10% of the price, so you get what you get, I guess. The powder, now that it's on, I have that settling in that line right here, but other than that, everywhere else it looked good, and I like the way it blurred on top of everything. So I think the makeup setting powder, I don't know if I would use this to set. I think I would use this more for like a finishing powder because the cheek I think looks really nice. I'm not seeing texture, I'm not seeing pores, everything just looks nice on top. But in that line and the places I needed to set, which are usually this line, the side of my nose, and my under eye. My side of my nose and my under eye are good. It's just this line right here. The brow is okay. Obviously, I prefer a brow gel. I think this brush right here, the Juno & Co. powder brush, is the only brush I really liked besides those ones I used on the lower lash. I kept having to grab my other tools that were not first impressions today for the upper lid and all of my blending brushes, but those ones I used on the lower lash I think were the perfect amount of rigid to pick up product and smoke things out beautifully. And other than that, I am quite happy. That being said, like, this is not for me a perfect makeup day. I don't think I'm looking at this like, damn, I look good, I want to like throw on a nice fancy outfit and hit the town because it's Corona and none of us get to do that anymore. But my point is, I'm not like, ooh, look. And there are times where I do my makeup and I'm like, I catch my reflection and I'm just looking in the monitor and I'm fluffing my lashes and I'm really feeling it. Today is unfortunately not that day. I love this right here. And the skin looks nice, but all in all, there's like a bunch of things I would have changed and done differently. So, what do you guys think? Let me know down below, what products are you here for? What are you loving? What do you think you're going to pick up? And what is not really making the mark for you? Let me know down below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!